Hello everyone. A recent judgment by the Court of Appeal has made me realize that a lot of people are not aware of the fact that where a husband and a wife decide to purchase a property, the name that should appear on the deed of conveyance is the name of the husband and the wife. The law does not recognize Mr. and Mrs. Musa or Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo or Mr. and Mrs. Afolabi. The law does not recognize Mr. and Mrs. John as a juristic person. So the names of the husband and the wife must be clearly stated on the deed of conveyance. So if Mrs. Stella Okonkwo and Mr. Emeka Okonkwo are purchasing a property, you cannot write on the deed of conveyance Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo. You cannot say the purchasers of the property is Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo. That document will be rendered null and void. It will be void ab initio. So you must state that the purchasers of the property are Mr. Emeka Okonkwo and Mrs. Stella Okonkwo. The law does not recognize Alhaji and Alhaji Musa or Mr. and Mrs. Afolabi or Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo. No way. The names of the purchasers, the husband and the wife, must be stated clearly. For example, if you're married to a man and he has one Mrs. Musa somewhere or Mrs. Okonkwo, and the document is stating Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo, how do you differentiate which of the Mrs. Okonkwo that the man is referring to? So if you're purchasing a property with your husband, your name must be clearly written on that document as a purchaser of that property too. Thank you so much for listening.